right, everybody. Thank you for showing up or watching the recording of this week's master class. First, before we get started, I would like to go over a real quick reminder for everybody that every week I email you an email that looks a lot like this. And it covers today's session, what we're going to be talking about. Here's your link to join. It'll also be in the calendar invite. This is where you access all of the masterclass recordings. And then right in here, Scott and I talked about this last week, and I got all of his agents signed up. But this is where you go to, you can either circulate this link to your agents, or you can ask us to put all of your agents on here. And this is so that all the agents on your team have these on their calendar. So every Tuesday is our amped hours, where we answer questions on everything Follow-Up Boss, YLOPO, Zillow, all your integrations. That's your support there. And then we have 2 workshops. So Getting Fobbed Up with Bridget, that's an intensive session on Follow-Up Boss, and also our primer workshop. So make sure you're scrolling down in that email. You can send this link to your team, or you can just let us know if you have a new person that's joined your team. We can add them on and off there so that you can make sure that we are supporting you to the best of our abilities. With the exception of amped hours, some of you have let us know that you want your agents out in the field producing. They don't have time for extra trainings and things like that. That's fine. We circulate the recordings to all those as well, so that if they can't attend live, they can watch the recordings on a playlist. And our second fun announcement is Bridget's going to share her screen for this one. We have rewritten and updated and made much better our buyer, seller, and renter nurture campaigns. And these are already shared with you in the back end of your Follow-Up Boss account. So what we would like you to do is go in here and find these, and Bridget will show us how in just a second. Let us know if you want us to put these into your account for you, or we can show you how to make copies of these and rewrite them. So if you have a very special niche, like you want everything to be about living on a lake or a mountain or a cliff or wherever you want to sell homes, we can help you do that as well. But we are trying to answer your demands for updated action plans to help you with your leads. And we want to make sure that you're using the resources that we create for you. So Bridget, do you want to show them where to find these?
Yep. So when you go into your main screen, this is our account, and you go to action plans, you guys should have an Amplified Solutions folder. So ours is in a little bit of a different place, but you would see it's the AS Nurture Buyer 2.0 and the AS Nurture Seller 2.0. So those are the new ones. We've got the automations and everything set up like that. So if you want us to go in and just switch them for any of those new people coming in going forward, we could do that. And then there's also going to be the AS Renter Nurture plan, which we just started rolling this out. So if you don't see it in your account just quite yet, it should hopefully be in there in the next day or two. And you guys will be able to utilize that. It's kind of like a renter conversion to buyer type plan. So good new stuff. We're still working on more, like Chris said, doing a little bit more of a beefing up this long-term nurture plan, I think might be next on the list, and a couple of other great ones in the works for you guys to utilize as well. And you guys, like I said, we'd have those automations set up for you guys as clients. And you would just let us know if you want it enabled. If that's not the case and you wanted to kind of browse through, make sure it's content, or like Chris said, go change any of the wording or make it a little bit more specific, you could do that as well. But it will be in your automations, and it'll work the same way as your guys' old nurture. So once it goes to nurture, and if they have a buyer or seller tag, they'll get assigned to the right plan. So it would be called the AS Nurture Buyer 2.0 with that plan attached. And all you'd have to do is just flip the switch and get that bad boy enabled.
Thank you. And if you need help installing this in your account, we're full service for y'all. So let us know. We can make sure that we have that up and running on the leads that you wanted applied to. And we are trying to crank those out for you as often as we can and update those plans, because we know how important it is to keep yourself in front of your clients so that they think of you first when they think about real estate. All right. So this week's topic is developing simple lead conversion SOPs for your agents. Now, I want to talk a little bit about SOPs so we understand what they are and why they're important. So SOP, Standard Operating Procedure. This is a set of written instructions that describe a step-by-step process that must be taken in order to perform a routine activity. And in order to be effective, SOPs need to be followed in the exact same way every time. And they need to be written in a way so that the user can easily follow and execute from the directives that you're given them. Now, an SOP is not something that you set in stone. These need to be reviewed and updated as there are continual updates to technology, software, the market. This is an ever-evolving system. So like we talk about, we don't need to be really married to one particular way of doing things. And even though with your SOP, you're committing to doing things a very certain way, you don't need to be married to that way forever. So as you find ways to be more efficient or convert at a higher level, go back, set reminders, whether it's quarterly, every 6 months. It's not something you need to do regularly, like every week or every month. I would say maybe every 6 months to a year. Set those reminders to go back and update your SOPs so that you're continually improving your system. Also, listen to your people. Your way, probably, even though you might be the leader, your way is not always the best way. So listen to their feedback, because often the people performing these activities will find shortcuts. They'll find more efficient ways to do things. If we say this on step 3 instead of that, it converts at a higher level. So listen to that feedback, listen to your people, and again, update these things regularly. So we need SOPs because when someone is faced with not knowing what to do next and doing nothing, most of our people will unfortunately do nothing. Rather than make a bad decision, they're going to do nothing. That's a safe decision in their mind to make. And we know that that's not the right thing to do. Most of us would rather take a wrong action forward instead of no action forward. But by showing them exactly what they should do, when they should do it, and why they should do it, you're taking that uncertainty out and giving them a fast, confident way to propel their business forward instead of that doing nothing or doing the wrong thing. So SOPs ensure that tasks and processes are carried out consistently with a really high level of quality throughout your business. And that leads to a few things. It leads to agent retention, because they know what they should be doing and will therefore have a higher likelihood of success. And they can work more independently since they aren't going to come to you for every single line. Oh, what should I do about this? What should I do about that? They know. And so when you're acting confidently in your work, you feel more secure in it. And that confidence exudes out into all of your communications. So that's going to bleed into your client communications as well. And it also leads to higher client satisfaction levels and repeat business, because when your people are less confused, the errors are lower, and the delays of your people having to come to you and wait for approval or ask for direction leads to a lot smoother processes in the general system of your business. Having SOPs are also really great at minimizing risks and maximizing your knowledge retention. So if your people know exactly what they're supposed to be doing and they're referring to your SOPs often, all that guesswork's taken out. And you can be confident that they're acting just as you would in particular scenarios or with potential clients. So it's helping you to retain control and do things in the way that you want to, but it's also giving them that feeling of freedom of, okay, I can operate on my own. I don't need someone holding my hand, even though it's more the document holding their hand. SOPs, they're really fantastic for training agents, onboarding, getting people up to speed really quickly. By giving your people these really clear instructions and a place to reference everything that they would likely encounter, they're going to be acting in a way that leads to production instead of just guessing at what needs to be done. So think about our sample schedule for success that we talk about. That's an SOP. That's telling you, you wake up and you do this. Next, you do that. And it leaves the guesswork of, well, what do I do next? I don't know what to do. I'm going to find something to do. That thing you find to do probably isn't going to result in a whole lot of business. So by giving them this prescription, they know really well what to do. As you document your procedures, you're going to also capture the expertise and knowledge of your entire staff and agents. So when you bring on a new agent or you bring on a new admin, they're not only learning from you, but everybody who helped you to develop these systems. So when we document everything, it's also going to take the strain off your team when it comes to onboarding and training new people. So if you have all your SOPs in a place and you're just merely updating them as time goes on, and you develop new, better ways of doing things, you're not going to have to put together a training system for that new agent or admin. You've got it all right there for them to start learning on day one. All right, so how do we build out an SOP? What is it that we need to do? So the first thing we need to do is identify what we're going to be building the SOP on. What's the task to be performed and what's the goal of that task? Okay. Next, we're going to figure out our format. Is this going to be a list? Is it a flow chart? Are there steps that have to be done in an exact order? Think about the whole process and figure out the best way to communicate this information. And it doesn't have to be the same way every time. All right. So once we have a great picture of how to write this out, we're going to identify dependencies. So does the person executing this particular SOP need to work with anyone else in the company? And if so, what are their steps? Let's put the whole picture together and get it on paper so that everyone knows the entire process from soup to nuts. Next, we're going to write out our SOP. We're going to use all the details, all the screenshots, video clips, everything someone would need. And then we're going to get someone to test out our SOP. So get someone who was not involved with the process, probably someone who is in a role that would receive this SOP in the future, and ask them to test it for you. And then we'll determine from our test, does this get our user to the end goal? Were there any questions asked or roadblocks encountered that you didn't anticipate? Often what makes sense to us isn't fully clear to someone else, because we have our own lens that we look through. We have our own bank of knowledge, but that's different. So Bridget and I could read the same book and walk away with two very different things. So make sure you're listening to the questions that they ask and go, I didn't think to add that detail in. So what they're going to do is help you piece together all of the, if you've worked somewhere for 5-10 years, you know a lot of the little nuances of things, but a new person isn't going to understand things to the depth of what you do. So it would be a really great idea to have a newer person within your organization test out your SOP. All right, so are there questions asked? Did they hit any roadblocks that you didn't anticipate? Or Did they get through it and go, you know what? There was probably an easier way to do this. Ask those questions, get your answers. If you need to update it, update it. If you do update it, test it again on another newer person. So once we have this pretty well hammered out, we're going to add this new SOP to our database of training. Wherever you house your training, wherever you house your reference and training for new members of your organization, add it there so that anyone coming in will receive this SOP. Next, we're going to roll out our new SOP to all existing agents, employees, and we're going to train them on how to do it and where to find it. In this training, you're going to want to give them some examples. So create dummy leads, create a fake transaction, whatever you're training them on, give them examples right then to try it out on, because the more they do something, the easier it's going to be. And if there's a lag time between when you first introduce this to someone and when they use it, there's going to be a loss of information. So as you train them, give them a few examples to try it out on, let them go, and then retrain them on it again. So give them a month or two, retrain on it, and update it if you ever need to. And then we're going to add to our schedule a time to revisit it. So like I said, that 6 month or a year mark, that's really going to be the best time to go back and revisit your SOPs. And you don't have to do them all at once. Batch them out, delegate. So if you have people who manage your transactions for you or your listing manager, whoever's in charge of those departments, get them to revisit the SOPs and help you update them. Make sure you're delegating. You don't have to do it all yourself. All right. So this is the build out and training of it. Now, 3 important things I do want to repeat. Make sure you give them the opportunity to practice the process a few times. And then make sure you're housing this in a database that you not only refer to very frequently, but they know how to access it. So it's where they go for everything. Don't have everything, oh, well, this bank of information is here and this bank of information is here. Get everything in one place so everybody knows where to find all the resources that they need in order to be successful. So wherever you can, create slides instead of stairs, and your resource library is going to be a slide for you and your business. All right, so what are some types of things that you can use SOPs for other than leads? We're going to talk about leads and prospecting specifically here in a second, but SOPs can be used all across your business. So we can use them for onboarding, exits. The sample schedule for success is an SOP, albeit a general one. What to do when a new lead comes in. What to do when you ratify a contract. How do you process your internal paperwork? Another great SOP to use is what to do after you ratify a contract outside of the company. So how do you communicate with your clients? How do you communicate with the attorneys, your title officers, the agent on the other side? This one would be especially important for a newer agent who doesn't have a whole lot of experience, because the communication mistakes that happen immediately after ratification, getting everyone on the same schedule, sending the ratified contract to the lender, getting it over to the attorney, building these processes by using SOPs is going to help your people maximize their business and keep your clients. So other SOPs you can use: how to do a buyer presentation. Yes, there's a buyer presentation, but there's a whole process, but you don't just show up and give the buyer presentation. So how do we lead up to that appointment? Do we remind them of the appointment? How do I show up to the appointment? What do I bring to the appointment? Taking all the guesswork out of these things is going to grease the skids of your business. So just like buyer presentations, you can do the same for listing presentations. Here's the list of things and the order, the proposed order, dealing with clients. We can always get out of order. Here's everything you need to do every time you do a listing presentation. Open houses, that's another great use case for SOPs. All of the things you can do to create a really killer open house, from the week before prep to the day before prep to the day of and the breakdown. There's a huge list of things you can do to really set up and execute a killer open house. What to do with a recruiting lead. That's another great way to use an SOP. What to do with a lead that doesn't yet live in the area. And also prospecting and follow-up boss. We actually have a sample SOP that you guys can use that looks like this. Daily, weekly, monthly, and follow-up boss. So this shows them, and this is editable, what they need to do in follow-up boss. So every day in follow-up boss, you need to do these items. Every week in follow-up boss, you need to do these items. And then monthly, you need to do these items. This is something that's found in your ASU, your Amplified Solutions University page, under client-only resources. We have all these guides for you. It's the daily, weekly, monthly in follow-up boss. But that's another great use for an SOP that we would want you to utilize for your team. So let's talk about, and I'm going to do this here so that everyone can see it. If my little magic mouse will cooperate. So let's brainstorm. Well, first of all, are there other obvious examples of things that we could use an SOP for that I haven't covered? What else would we use SOP for other than general onboarding and training? Are there activities that you would do that I haven't mentioned? Other topics that we would need to make an SOP for?
I think it can be anything. I compare this to I'm a woodworker, and they say in woodworking, when you're doing a task more than 4 times, and you make a jig for it, right? So
yeah,
in this case, it's the same thing as an SOP. It's just a jig for woodworking. So the more you're going to do something, then the more it pays off in the long run to do some sort of standard practice for it.
absolutely. And if someone asks you a question, and this is applicable on a team of 5 or a team of 500. If one person is asking you a question, other people have the same question. It's not just isolated to that one person or that one incident. I had a great conversation with one of my state senators. I ran into him at a bar. And he mentioned to me, and I didn't even vote for the guy. He's in the other party that I don't vote for. But he said to me, and I use this a lot, he said, for every one person, because there's like a number you can call to talk to your representatives. You know, the ads that come out on Instagram, they're like, if you're mad about this, you call and you talk to your representative. So the rule that they use between party line or cross party lines rather, is if one person calls and asks a question or complains or says something about something, you can generally think that 1,000 other people in your bank of constituents feels the same way. So if someone has strong feelings about the environment and 5 people call and say something similar, you can think, okay, 5,000 of my constituents have the same concern, the same issue, the same problem. So think about your team as your bank of constituents. If one person asks you, the percentage wise, there's a lot of other people. So just like Scott said, if you're answering the question once, it's in your best interest to put together an SOP, put together a quick explainer video, and proactively train everyone on that so that they learn it as they come in, or they learn it then, and then you add it to your database of training. So you're also training your new people on it as they come in, and then you retrain them on it. You train them again, and then you train them again. Training's never over. All right, so let's practice really quick setting up an SOP for a new lead. Okay. And my Zoom screen is very funny. So a new lead comes into our database. So step one, our new lead registers. And we're going to assume, just for the purposes of this exercise, that we don't have ISAs working this lead. It's going into a pond. So step one, the new lead registered and arrives in the new lead pond. All right, so what do we want our agents to do? Are we going to call first? Are we going to text first? Or are we going to email first? I'm going to say we're going to call first. So we're going to call the lead. If lead does not answer, text the lead. Send an email to the lead. I'm going to type in shorthand so it doesn't get weird, because whenever you're on Zoom, things tend to get weird. All right, so we've called, we've texted, and we've emailed the lead. What do we do next if we don't have an answer? We don't know?
Put them on a drip campaign.
Okay, we could put them on a drip campaign. I would say for my drip campaign, I'm going to save that. So if I call the lead, text the lead, and send an email to the lead, and they don't answer, I'm going to go to day 2. We're going to call, text, and email, come on, fingers, on day 2. Nothing, day 3. We're going to call, text, and email. And this is your team. You can do whatever you want, but I'm just going to go through the action. So we're going to call, text, and email. Okay. So it's day 3 and we've got bupkis from these people. We've done 9 touches in 3 days and we don't have anything. So we can put them on a drip campaign. And then we're going to set a task to reach out to them every 48 hours for the next 14 days on top of our drip campaign. So we can set a task to try them again every 48 hours. Ooh, come on, fingers. So we're going to have them on a nurture email campaign, but we're also going to try them again via text and phone for the next 2 weeks. Okay. And then after 2 weeks, if no answer, move to the fish pond and assign nurture campaign B. All right. So imagine if you had a new lead SOP for any type of new lead. There's a SOP you can do for new buyer leads, new seller leads, sources of leads. So if you have referral leads coming in, that would be a great thing to do. What are all the steps that you can do? So are you using SOPs for your leads currently? Anybody?
Yeah.
Good. Veronica, are y'all using SOPs for your new leads as they come in?
Honestly, I don't know that we have anything as standardized as this.
Well, good. Well, this will be a good opportunity for you because it's not really so much what's guaranteed to work every single time. Because if you had one thing that was guaranteed to work every single time, we probably wouldn't have any need for a lot of things. But what you want to do when you're setting up SOPs for your leads in particular is what is going to take the guesswork out for your agents? What is going to position your agents to have the best chances of success with connecting with the lead and then converting the lead? So when you set up, and this is why we are rewriting a lot of our action plans and emails, you want to make sure you're giving them value every time. So getting as specific as on your day 2 text, say, hi, this is Veronica with XYZ Realty. I wanted to share with you my 2023 new home buyer checklist. Would that be something you would like to receive? So you're offering them something of value. You're showing them that you're an expert. And if you can provide them something educational, that's going to keep them in your ecosystem a lot longer than someone who's like, oh, hi, just checking in. Hey, just checking in. Do you want to talk about real estate now? Hey, it's been 3 days and I've texted you 9 times and you haven't answered. Would you like to talk about real estate now? Oh, by the way, what's your credit score? So offering that education piece, offering them information that they might not know about the real estate process. So as you develop your SOPs, and I know we kind of quickly went through because we only have 45 minutes together, but if you could get specific with when you send your day 2 text, this is what it should say. And you can build templates in your follow-up boss for this. Here's the email. Send email template number 9 for your second email. Those types of specifics are going to help your people really, really perform at that high level, because it takes out everyone's go-to is, well, I'm just checking in. I'm just checking in. And that's not how people actually talk to one another. That's something people say when they lack the knowledge of what to say. And when you're positioning yourself as the industry expert, and you know you're an industry expert, you always know what to say. That's why Phil Jones is making $1 billion a year teaching people exactly what to say. You guys have all seen the ads, the exactly what to say. He's training people on knowing what to say, and he knows what to say because he's an expert. And real estate agents who are true experts, they do know what to say every time. And they're not being manipulative. They're not being salesy. Well, if I say this, they'll do this. No, they are very well versed in the market. They know what's going on. They know the questions that people are going to have. So if you can preemptively, as you write out your SOPs for new leads, most of your SOPs are going to be answering the questions of, how many times do I need to reach out to this lead before I put it out to nurture or to pasture, whichever? What do I say to them? What do I send to them? So if you can make templates to support your SOPs and provide as much education and value in those templates, you can teach them about the buyer process, teach them about the current market, teach them what happens at a closing, what information do you need to give to a lender. Lead, the top 20 questions of a buyer who hasn't gone through the transaction in a while. So as you're reaching out to these leads and building your SOPs, build in that value so that you're preemptively, you're going ahead and answering the questions before they have an opportunity to ask them. And what you're doing, even if they don't respond to you, you are building in your mind, in the potential client's mind, that Veronica knows her stuff. I've never seen someone send me such valuable information. I am not ready to talk to her yet, but when I'm ready to talk to somebody, I'm not going to think about going anywhere else other than her. Because you need to assume, and you can track this through Follow Up Boss, but you need to assume if you have their right email, you have the correct phone number, they're opening and digesting the information that you send to them. So taking this with your SOP and combining it with a very education, proactively answering questions format, that's going to help build rapport with them before you even talk to them. So don't build into your SOPs for new leads or existing leads any type of, and yes, there's a time and a place for, hey, we haven't talked in a while. Are you still on this timeline? Are you still interested in buying a home at any point in the future? I just wanted to make sure what I'm sending you makes sense. Yes, there's a time and a place for that, but put it very sporadically through your plan, through your SOP. So SOPs can be made for new leads. They can be made for leads that just made an action to get them back into your ecosystem. So an existing lead that sent in a new inquiry. What do? What's the appropriate amount of time for your agents to respond to that? Because if you don't give them that direction, Bridget might think it's appropriate to get back to them in 2 to 3 business days. Me, I paid for this lead. I would like them to have an answer within an hour of that, within a business hour. How about that? We don't want it to be, you don't need to stay up until 3 o'clock in the morning watching your follow-up database. But I would like, if it comes in during work hours, within the hour, they need to have a response. So these are the types of things that you need to build into your SOPs, because we never want to assume that other people would do what we would do. I may have mentioned this before, but it reminds me of a girl. I was the ISA manager for a team, and one of my ISAs rolled in. Work started at 9. Ooh, that girl would roll in 9:15, 9:20, not acknowledge, hey y'all, not acknowledge anything. And I just kept getting mad about it. And finally, I sat her down in a one-on-one and I said, Heather, what time does work start? And she goes, oh, at 9. And she goes, have I been coming in late? And I was like, yeah, you're late every single day. And it makes me feel like disrespected. I start paying you at 9 and you roll in at 9:15 and you're not starting work. And I said, here's my expectation. And I said, I'm not going to be mad about this anymore because we've never had this conversation. If your work starts at 9, that means you need to be starting work at 9. So however long it takes you to make your coffee, say hey to everybody, post on Snapchat, which she did all the time, however long it takes you to settle in and do that, arrive that much early so you're ready to go at 9. And we don't need to talk about this ever again. And she was very upset. She's very tearful. She was like, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. And in my view, I was like, I had made up this story about her that she was being disrespectful. She was a slacker, and she had not, this was her first professional work experience. She had never worked in an office before. No one had ever told her that. So don't wait until you're making up a story about your agents like, they are disrespecting my stuff. Lead them with the information and over-explain to the point where you assume they don't know that they need to answer that lead's inquiry for a showing within a business hour, or they're going to go to another company, because they probably don't. People come to us from, I used to say all the time, where do we find these people? Long John Silver's? Like, where do they come up with all of this stuff that I would never dream of doing? Well, I started working full time when I was 14. My resume looks like a Rupert Murdoch's for my age, but a lot of people don't do that. They don't get into this weird professional environment at a young age and just learn the ropes. So they might come to you with 0 professional experience. And I say professional, I mean like office experience, where you're having to write emails, you're having to, perform differently than you would in other industries, like a service industry. That's still professional, and I'm not knocking it. I stood behind a bar for a really long time. I love the service industry, but don't assume that they know what you know, and that needs to be taken into consideration with your SOPs. What is the appropriate length of time before you respond to this inquiry? How often do you send an outreach to this lead before you put it into the pond? And I guarantee you, if you don't have these written out for your team already, they are asking these questions because they ask us these questions. We have teams, they're like, well, how many times do you think I should reach out to someone before I do this? So make sure you're answering those questions, even though you might go, this is probably common knowledge. I guarantee you it is not common knowledge. All right. Do you have any questions about SOPs or particular types of leads? Veronica, I know you said that you didn't feel like you had any. Do you have any questions about the best way to utilize these, or?
Oh, I'm sure our team has a lot of different documented process. I just don't think we have anything in one set place where our agents actually know where to find it. So that's something that I need to look into and check with my team.
Yes, I love that. Do you guys, it can be as simple as a Google Drive. So getting your folders in line, labeling them clearly, making sure that you have that section of the drive locked so it's view only for your people, because we all know that can get really messy over time when people are making copies and whatever. So partition off that area of your Google Drive or whatever you're using so that it's view only or read only for your people. And that way you can have a high level of control about what goes in there. And make people, depending on the size of your organization, people who are in leadership positions or trainers can put things in there, but make sure no one else can change it or edit it or move it out. But labeling everything really clearly, and maybe putting things in order so that it's searchable. Because if you use something like a Trainual to onboard, that is incredible. But in my experience, Trainual is sort of like a one-time use. It's not something that is easy for people to go back and reference. And whenever you train on anything, there's a lag time between when you learn the information and then when you use the information. So getting them a supplemental place to refer to frequently. So if you have everything in a Trainual or a Google Classroom, duplicate that information and have it on a drive that's searchable that they can find. And that will, and train your leadership and your agents. Whenever they ask you a question, say, oh, that's great, I have something that can help you. And then you link them to the drive. So you're answering the question, but you're sending them to the drive so that mentally the next time they have a question, they're like, I bet this is on the drive. I bet this is in that special folder that Scott made for me. But yeah, let me know as you start to build that out and I can help you, because I love documenting and organizing information. All right.
Thank
Scott,
you.
of course. Scott, you have any words of wisdom for us before we go?
A couple. I would just say, in my experience, one of the SOP keys to success is to keep it simple. I've been kind of the king of one pagers, and my feeling is if your SOP is longer than one page, then something's wrong. So either you've got too detailed information in there that nobody's ever going to read, or maybe that should be 3 or 4 different procedures and break it out into separate ones. So, I think keeping it simple is key. And another one I think for me is I'm less of a visual learner than most people. I think 8 out of 10 are visual learners. So like that one that you described on there for the leads, you could easily turn it into a flow chart, right? And say, here's what happens if and then kind of statements, and keep it really simple, keep it flow charty, and it conveys the same information. But if you're a visual person, you'll be able to read that better.
Absolutely. And you'll remember it better because if you have a flow chart and you can see the lead, if they do respond, they go on this path, they don't respond, they go on this path. When you're trying to recall that information, when you're not at your computer, you can visualize the path that it follows. So yes, absolutely. I completely agree. Keep it simple and use whatever, like we said earlier, if you need to use screenshots, if you need to make a flow chart, if it has to go in order 1 through 10, number it and make sure they understand. But just use enough information for them to follow their way. You don't need to have a big diatribe of why you do every single step. They need to understand the general concept and the goal that they're trying to achieve. But for your SOP, maybe teach them that as you teach the SOP so that they know it, but on the actual SOP, it needs to be a reminder of the steps. That was a great point. All right, guys, thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next week. Thank you so much.
Guys.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Scott. Bye.